Well, Keith, let's talk about how
Yeah.
Auburn could benefit from this Walker White positions that they might. And I thought last night, first of all, we know that he named, I think, 14 or 15 guys that he was going to be targeting to join him in the Auburn class. I think when it comes to, and we saw this back in the transfer portal days of December when Auburn was after these transfer portal wide receivers. Well, they really
Yeah.
didn't want to have anything to do with Auburn because Auburn didn't have anybody to throw them the football. So now that you've got a Walker White in this class, you got to think the wide receiver group will be benefiting from him. And he
Yeah.
mentions some guys. We've talked about some guys. I want to throw some at you. Cameron
Yeah.
Coleman, the 4-star wide receiver from
Yeah.
Central Phoenix City. TJ Moore down there in your area, your neck of the woods there at Tampa Catholic, Keith. Perry Thompson, the 4-star wide receiver committed to Alabama. In-state kid who's visited Auburn and has basically even publicly said, Keith, I'm kind of committed to Alabama. No, I'm kind of committed. And then another kid, Nye Carr, who was at Auburn's junior day, Georgia commitment.
Yeah.
Those four guys really stuck out to me. Cam Coleman, Perry Thompson, in-state kids, TJ Moore from Florida, Nye Carr committed to Georgia. Would you think, Keith, the wide receiver position would benefit most from a quarterback like Walker White being?
I mean, you'd have to think so. Of course,
Right?
Look, you'd have to think so. Of course, Bo Nix, George Pickens, I think, committed to Auburn before Bo Nix, and then that obviously fell through. But Seth Williams was in that class too, was he not?
He sure was.
I think the speedy receiver from South Florida. Oh my gosh, I'm drawing so many blanks these days. Yes.
Schwartz.
Anthony Schwartz. My goodness, boy, we're getting old, Jeff.
I said Swain.
But Anthony Swain. I like that. Anthony Schwing would be his cousin, I guess. But no. So out of the four guys you mentioned, so here's what we're learning. We know Hugh Freeze loves tall receivers. A.J. Brown and DK Metcalf were signed by him at Ole Miss, 6'3" guys, tall guys that are now shining in the NFL. Well, three of the four guys you mentioned there, Perry Thompson of Foley, Alabama, 6'3". Cameron Coleman of Central Phoenix City, 6'3". TJ Moore out of Tampa Catholic, 6'4", with a vertical. I think I said 42 inches last time. I might have been wrong. Right? Only been 38 inches. Okay, which means he can only touch the top of the backboard. So he likes those. Hugh Freeze likes those athletic freaks. And I got to tell you, these kids, it's cool for them on a guy's big day, his commitment day, to mention their name. That means something to them. Hey, well, okay, And so Cameron Coleman's right down the road. We know that Marcus Davis, the Auburn receivers coach, his first 2024 offer was to Cameron Coleman. Now, he didn't go to junior day, and he was going to go the next day, and I guess he didn't show up either. But he's right down the road. Auburn hasn't had a lot of success at that school. I don't think they've signed anybody since defensive back John Broussard, 5, 6, 7 years ago. But I don't think the norms are going to apply to Hugh Freeze. Do you,
I agree.
Jeffrey?
Mm-mm.
I mean,
you can throw that out.
Yeah, I think Deron Reed from Carver Columbus, he actually flipped to Auburn before Hugh Freeze was hired, the 4-star defensive lineman. But he stuck with Auburn with Hugh Freeze. I think they're going to be able to do some damage in that area. I really do. There's just too much buzz, and Hugh's really popular with high school coaches. So I think Cameron Coleman's certainly somebody to watch. He visited Kentucky. Alabama recently offered him. But, man, when you're looking, what does Jay Head, our cohort, always say? Proof of concept. When you're a receiver and you're watching NFL and you're seeing DK Metcalf as one of the 3 or 4 highest paid receivers in the league, and he's your size, and he was signed by Hugh Freeze, and those are the kinds of things that matter. But so you've got that, and now you have a quarterback. If you're Auburn, Walker White's a big name, and you beat out Clemson. But you probably hope he goes out and competes in some camps this spring and gets his ranking boosted, because that stuff matters to other kids. It really does. I mean, you got a million factors, facilities, NIL's the biggest. But that's one of those things that, hey, they want to play with a guy that's a big name, high profile guy. So he's got the big name and he's a high profile. The way to boost that is to now maybe he gets into that top 100. But no, I think that obviously he's getting Auburn in the game and going to help them more with these guys. And Nye Carr is an interesting one because he's in Colquitt County, Georgia, Moultrie, Georgia, just south of Albany on the way to Valdosta. And he is only 5'10", so he'd be more of your slot guy. You got to have those guys too, and Hugh Freeze loves those guys. Yep. But committed to Georgia. 2 of the guys that Walker White mentioned, he mentioned 14 guys that he was targeting. 2 of them are Georgia commits. Well, if that isn't an interesting salvo. I mean, you know what I mean? Jeffrey, we've been dealing with people the last few years that They didn't even really want those schools to know they were recruiting their guys. Oh, we got to keep this stuff hush hush. No, this is a new philosophy. We're going to make them sweat. We may not get this guy from you if you're the Auburn Tigers, but my program, if I'm Hugh Freeze, let's pretend I'm Hugh Freeze. I may not get all these guys, but I'm damn sure going to make you sweat it out. Okay. And while you're concentrating on saving these guys, I'll go get some other guys. Okay. And we mentioned this on the show last night. I think Hugh Freeze is savvy enough that he might actually even throw out some red herrings to throw some other schools off the trail of some guys they really want. I think you have to do that. I really do. Some people call it chicken shit type games, but I think isn't recruiting just one big game anyway?
Hell yeah.
But Nycar is an interesting one. There was a tight end, Landon Thomas, from the same high school. I believe he's committed to Georgia as well. They've got Walker White in full recruiting mode. We're going to be doing more on that, obviously, in the coming days and weeks. But people want to play with these guys. He's a confident guy, right? He, like Hugh Freeze, he wears his religion right here, right on his sleeve, and he's proud of it. That is going to – certain kids are going to gravitate to him because of that, because of all the talents. But he's also much more – and I love Bo Nix, and I think you like talking to him too. I wouldn't say he was an introvert. I just wouldn't say he was an extrovert.
No, that's fair.
Kind of just a regular dude, right? Cool dude. I think this guy's a little bit more of a extrovert, Walker White.
We've already seen it on Twitter.
Yeah.
He's already calling for people that and I know Cole had something on Daniel Hill, the running back from Meridian, Mississippi, earlier this morning.
Yeah.
I talked to him last night. I have a little bit more on him, but
good.
He certainly is aware that Walker White has been, mentioning his name that to get him to Auburn.
There you go.
He is aware, and they have had some communication. I think it's fairly new. Obviously, Walker White just committed 3 days ago, but that conversation has begun. He's already started contacting some of these guys, and most of these guys, if not all, are aware that Walker White has mentioned them by name as him wanting them to come to Auburn. That's a pretty big deal.
That was the point. You're right. And hey, by the way, that ceremony was great. It looked like it was going to be one of the fastest, cleanest ceremonies ever. And then Walker, I got to kid him about that. I mean, he literally thanked everybody in the state of Arkansas. But you know what? You only do it once. I'm sure everybody he mentioned was grateful. But to then come back and mention all these kids by name again, some of them, and by the way, thank you, Walker White. Some of them we didn't even know. We didn't know, and unfortunately, our competition knows this now too. But we didn't know some of these guys were really how high they were on Auburn's radar.